I've been watching the game of basketball for many years at this point, and throughout that time, I've had a core belief that I've never really articulated to anyone. Basically, it's this. There's championship caliber players who never won a championship, and then there's NBA champions who were simply along for the ride. Unfortunately, legacies are defined mostly by the bottom line. Did you win or did you not? It's why Shaquille O'Neal can continue to roast Charles Barkley time and time again on live television, regardless of the fact that the round mound of rebound almost always took his game to another level in the NBA playoffs. If you ask me, when it comes to championship caliber players who never won a championship, one player in NBA history fits that description better than anyone else I've ever seen. You know him as the human highlight film Dominique Wilkins. What if I told you that Neek wasn't just a great dunker, and he wasn't just a great scorer, but he was without question one of the most complete offensive weapons in the history of the game. And when the postseason came around, somehow he always became even better, and was able to contend with dynastic juggernauts that you would assume his roster would have no business competing with. As Dominique himself has said on many different occasions, you don't score nearly 30,000 points in your career simply as a dunker. On the contrary, Neek was not only an above-the-rim athlete, but he was a mid-range artist, equipped with a soft shooting touch and with pristine footwork. He was a remarkable rebounder for a 6'8" wing, getting as high as 9 rebounds per game in 1991. These incredible attributes enabled Wilkins to complete many impressive feats, like leading the entire NBA in scoring during the 1985 to 1986 season, where he averaged 30.3 points per game, even ahead of elite scorers like Larry Bird, Alex English, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That season, he led his Hawks to 50 wins in a stacked Eastern Conference, and thanks to this stellar season-long performance, he finished second in the MVP voting, ahead of Magic Johnson and only behind Larry Bird. Dominique was also an athlete who developed his game over time, and as his career progressed, he didn't just become a solid three-point shooter, but he became legitimately one of the best three-point shooters in the entire league. By 1993, Wilkins was hitting a deadly 38% of his three-point shots, while ranking 7th in the league in three-pointers attempted per game. For goodness sake, he was 6th in the league in three-pointers made per game. During that season, on March 9, 1993, Wilkins had his greatest performance from distance, as he scored 37 points while making 8 of his 12 three-point attempts. At the time, that was the Hawks franchise record for the most three-pointers made in a single game. And to this day, only 3 Hawks players have ever made more three-pointers in a game, regardless of the massive inflation in three-pointers attempted. Obviously, all of these aspects of his game are incredible, but the thing that always stood out to me the most is how Wilkins never shrunk under the weight of the moment. When the lights were the brightest, Neek performed at his best, as he always rose to the occasion. A perfect example of this comes from his epic battles with Michael Jordan and Larry Bird. Anytime these elite superstars squared off, you knew you were in for something special. Many of their matchups were simply some of the greatest one-on-one duels of all time, like on December 10, 1986, when Wilkins outperformed Michael Jordan's 41 points by dropping 57 points of his own on 68% shooting, as he led his Hawks to a massive victory. Those 57 points are still the most points ever scored against Michael Jordan in a single game. Or how about when MJ scored 61 points on Dominique? But it was Neek who had 34 points and who hit the game-winning jumper right in MJ's face. For the record, Dominique dropped at least 35 points on Michael Jordan a total of 15 times throughout his career. Meanwhile, Jordan dropped at least 35 on Dominique a fewer 13 times. Throughout their careers, both guys averaged roughly 30 points per game against one another. To put it simply, on any given night, you never knew who was going to get the last laugh between Dominique and MJ. When it came to the individual matchup, the battles between Larry Bird and Dominique Wilkins were more of the same. In the totality of their careers against one another, Dominique averaged more points per game than Larry Bird, although it was usually Bird who got the victories, as his team was 40-17 against the human highlight film. With that being said, there was no question who had the better supporting cast, as Bird was supported by one of the best centers in the league in Robert Parrish, one of the best power forwards of all time in Kevin McHale, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league in Dennis Johnson, and a 6th Man of the Year winner in Bill Walton. I mean no disrespect to the Atlanta Hawks who played alongside of Neek, as he did have some quality role players behind him in Doc Rivers, and in one of the original symbols of longevity, Kevin Willis. With that being said, the overall supporting cast was simply nowhere close to the level of support that Magic Johnson had, that Isaiah Thomas had, and that Larry Bird had, which is mainly why those legends were able to accumulate multiple championships in the 1980s, while Dominique remained ringless. Even with all of this being the case, Wilkins' ability to excel in the postseason had some people believing that he could actually do the unthinkable and defeat the defending Eastern Conference champion Boston Celtics and make it to the NBA Finals. It was the 1988 Eastern Conference semifinals between the 57-win Boston Celtics and the 50-win Atlanta Hawks. 5 NBA Hall of Famers versus 1. What proceeded to happen was one of the most epic battles in playoff history, with an iconic finish for the ages. In a must-win 4th game, Dominique dropped an efficient 40 points to give his Hawks the victory. But his best performance of the series would come in its most crucial contest, the deciding 7th game. This contest is now fondly remembered in basketball lore as simply the duel. Larry Legend and the human highlight film were trading basket after basket throughout. It was an intense back-and-forth game, capped off with one of the most thrilling fourth quarters in playoff history. As expected, Dominique was his best when he had to be, and heading into Atlanta's final possession, he had torched the Celtics defense for 46 points. The Hawks were down and needed a 3-point basket to force overtime. After seeing Wilkins light them up all night long, the Celtics would not be taking any risks, and decided to foul Dominique intentionally before he could attempt a 3-point shot. He proceeded to make the first free throw, and then missed the second one on purpose. But Atlanta was unable to secure the rebound, and the Celtics won the series as a result. On the night, Dominique scored 47 points on 19 of 33 shooting, in what was the most important basketball game of his professional career. Again, a team with just one Hall of Famer nearly took down a dynastic team that had 5, all because Dominique was the kind of superstar player who rose to the occasion. As I mentioned earlier in this video, there are NBA champions who were simply along for the ride. And then there's championship caliber players who never won a championship. The latter was Dominique. In an era of organic super teams like the Lakers, Celtics, Pistons, and 76ers, Dominique unfortunately never got to experience that level of a supporting cast, which I believe is the sole reason his career ended without multiple championship rings. But at the end of the day, if you ask me how I personally remember the legacy of Dominique Wilkins, it's that on any given night, regardless of who was out there on the court, Dominique could be the best player out there. It didn't matter if it was Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Julius Erving, or Michael Jordan. On any given night, Dominique could be the best of the very best.